This is part of our Thinking Outside the Lock series, and this particular episode is entitled Smilestones. You know, as we walk down a highway or ride down a highway in a vehicle, we notice that there are markers along the way that tell us where we are, where we've been, how far we've come, and how far we have to go to our destination. We call those milestones. But often in life, there are markers that tell us that we've come a certain distance and that we have a ways to go, and that will indicate where we've been was not exactly where we thought it was, and that in fact we have arrived at a destination, but really didn't appreciate what that destination was until looking at it in retrospect. We call those smilestones. Now, memory is a gift we know that God gives to us. Anybody, unfortunately, who's seen somebody, and we should never know from it, who has lost the ability to remember, we know how difficult that is. And we know that sometimes, as Jews, we may in fact suffer from a kind of spiritual amnesia. We're commanded every day to remember that Hashem, God, took us out of Mitzrayim, took us out of Egypt. In fact, on Pesach, that is the quintessence. The paramount mitzvah of the evening is to recall, remember, and to say over to our children, to ourselves, to reflect upon the past and the present and the future, but to remember always that we were slaves in Egypt and that Hashem, God, took us out. Now, the fact that we were witnesses, the Jewish people were witnesses to this, and it's been passed down from generation to generation to generation, that's not necessarily a guarantee that we're going to remember. Well, I had a relative, they called him Eagle Eye Epstein, 20/20 vision at 95 years old. And he was once called upon by a very famous golfer. And the golfer had a lot of money riding on a particular tournament, wanted to make sure that if a ball went off into the rough, that it would not be lost and he would lose a stroke and a good deal of money. So he heard about this relative of mine, Eagle Eye Epstein, who had this 20/20 vision, and he decided to hire him to make sure that no ball was ever lost and he would know exactly where it was. So he called him, he said, "Oh, you're Eagle Eye Epstein. Make sure you spot my ball. I'll give you a good deal of money, thousands of dollars, just to make sure that you spot my golf balls." "No problem. The Air Force hires me. I should be able to see UFOs. Perfect vision, without radar, without goggles, without the telescope, nothing, just perfect vision." Terrific. He knocks the first ball down, 350 yards straight down the fairway, and it veers off to the left into the rough. He goes, "Did you see it? Did you see it?" Sure, I saw it. Eagle Eye Epstein, what do you think? Perfect 20/20 vision." He says, "Great, let's go get it." They go running down to the fairway, running down into the rough. He says, "Okay, where's the ball?" He says, "I don't know." He says, "What do you mean? Didn't you see it?" "Sure, I saw it." "So where is it?" "I forgot." He forgot. We can see something with 20/20 vision, with clarity, with purpose, with insight, but how easy it is to forget. That's one of the reasons we're reminded on the nights of Passover, on Pesach, to remember that Hashem, God, took us out of Mitzrayim. And in fact, it's a mitzvah that we're obligated to remember every day. But it comes to the fore. It comes to the epitome of our sanctity of the Jewish people, as the Jewish people, on the nights of Passover, and the first night, the first 2 nights outside of Eretz Israel, for the Seder. When all of us, no matter what our backgrounds are, no matter how religious or unreligious we are, we sit around the table and remember, yes, God took us out of Egypt, and we're the living proof of that today. Now, some people ask, since it says that on the first day of the month of Nisan, that the redemption was to begin, maybe we should celebrate Passover, Pesach, on that very first night, instead of on the 15th. But others will say, no, only on the night itself that we were actually taken out, that's when we make the Pesach Seder. Well, there's a very interesting story that a friend of mine told over in a beautiful book called Visions of Freedom, in which this question is answered and another very valuable life lesson is learned as well, that no person should ever be taken for granted. And there's nothing, as far out as it may seem, no quality that a person may possess, even a fault that a person should discount, as we'll see in this story, in our series, Smilestones. There was a fellow who lived in a European village a couple of hundred years ago. was the time where pogroms had taken place and many villages had suffered from it. This fellow Moshe had been a victim. He lost his family. And unfortunately, Moshe was known as the town drunk. Every day he would get up and he'd try and say, I want to do something valuable today. I want to make myself part of the community. But he would just find himself wandering off to the tavern. And rather than the breakfast of champions, he would have a glass of vodka, and that would be his breakfast. And one day as he was walking outside, a few children said, please, Moshe, we don't have any money for the Sabbath. We don't have any money for the candles or for our mother to bake challah. He said, who do you think I am, Rothschild? And they looked at him. We don't have any money, Moshe. And he took his last pruta, his last coin that he was going to spend on another glass of vodka and gave it to him. And he went back and he fell asleep in his bed. And the children and the people in the town taunted him. Moshe, Moshe, you're a shikar, you're drunk. And he cried and cried himself to sleep. The next morning he would get up and the same thing would repeat itself day after day. He just could not pull himself out of this stupor. One day there was a knock on the door. Who is it? He thought it was the kids. Get out of here, you little rats. And as he opens the door, who is it? But it is Rabbi, the town gvir, the wealthiest Jew in the entire area. May I come in, Reb Moshe? Why, of course, but you must be in the wrong part of town. No, Moshe, I'm in the right part of town, and I've come to speak to you. I know, said Moshe. It must be the children. They're complaining. I want to be better. I just can't. Would you like a drink? No, Moshe. But I have to ask you something very, very important. You may be, in fact, the only person that can save our village. Me? How can I possibly save your village? I'm in no shape to even save myself. Moshe, allow me to sit down and tell you what happened. 2 weeks ago, John Caden, a Gentile who lives in the town and respects the Jewish people here, came in and he told us that he had learned of a plot by a Cossack by the name of Ivan Sutter to wipe out the entire town. Every man, woman, and Jewish child was going to be destroyed in a pogrom. And Moshe looked down because he remembered the last pogrom 20 years ago that had taken his family. Well, thank you, Rabbi, for telling me. I'll leave immediately. Please, sell me a horse and I'll leave. I'll get out of town. Thank you for telling me. No, you don't understand, Moshe. We don't want you to leave in a horse. You're the only person that can save the town. What are you talking about, Rabbi? Maybe you're the one who's drinking. Let me tell you what John Caden told me. He had discovered a plot that Ivan Sutter wanted to kill every man, woman, and Jewish child. And we went. We tried to bribe up Sutter. We found him. We found Ivan Sutter. He was there drinking away, laughing, and told us what he was going to do. And we said, look, we'll give you money. Leave us be. He said, no, I don't want any Jew left in this town. Well, all of a sudden, in his drunken stupor, he began to laugh with an evil kind of laugh. He said, I'll tell you what. You find me one Jew that can outdrink me. Stay standing and I'll leave this town for good. I'll go to Minsk and never come back. What do you say about that? Well, we looked at Caden and Caden looked at us. And we agreed. And Caden told him, if you don't keep your word and the Jews win, I'll make sure you leave. He took out his pistol and let him know that he meant business. And he did. Well, what's that got to do with me, Moshe wanted to know. Moshe, don't you understand? We know your capacity to drink. I know, and I want to stop. No, Moshe, you are going to stop. But after this, Moshe, you're the only one who can outdrink him. Well, that's absurd. It's crazy. Listen, Moshe, I'm going to bring you to my house for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to ply you with every type of liquor that you can imagine, that you just build up your tolerance to be able to outdrink this Ivan Sutter. Now let me get this straight. You want me to come to your house, and I'm going to drink as much as I possibly can, and you're going to pay me for it, and then all I have to do is outdrink him. He's only 5 times my size. Maybe we should leave now. Moshe, you're the only one who can save the town, and the entire village is depending on you. Will you do it? Okay, Okay, Moshe agreed. And so they went to the Gvir's house. And as Rabbi began to ply him with liquor and food and everything that he needed, every day Moshe built up his tolerance. Now, of course, nobody was supposed to know about it, only the heads of the town. But everybody was whispering. Everybody found out about it. He's going to drink against Ivan Sutter. Let's get out of here. He'll never make it. Why, Moshe, he can outdrink anybody. And the whole town was in an uproar. Finally, the day came. And now Moshe is going out to meet Sutter at a special place near the tavern. And they're out there in the woods by the table. And it's all set up, and he walks in and he says to Banish, maybe I should give up drinking. Not today, Moshe. Right after. You will. You'll see. You'll be great. So they walked in, and he looks up and he sees a huge Cossack. He goes, Ivan? He goes, no, over there. And a guy who's even bigger than him, the size of a house. And he looks down at Moshe and says, you little Jew, you little pipsqueak, this is who you send against me? Why, I should kill all of you now. And they sat down to drink. They brought the drinks, bottle after bottle, glass after glass. Moshe makes a bracha, the bracha over drinking. Yes, drinking on whiskey. Sha'akol niyeh b'dvara, that everything comes from the word of Hashem. And he began to drink, and Ivan began to drink. And Ivan begins to insult him, and he throws an insult back at him. And they're insulting each other back and forth. And finally Ivan says, you little Jew! And he takes his glass and he throws the whiskey in Moshe's face. Moshe wipes his face and goes, if you didn't want to drink, why don't you just say so? L'chaim, and he drinks again. And now Moshe gets up, but it looks like he's not going to make it. And he falls back and he's out. And Ivan gets up, he says, I'm going to kill all of you! And Moshe looks up and he goes, that's so fast, Ivan. I have not yet begun to drink. And he gets up and he stands and he drinks again and he drinks again, and Ivan drinks and Ivan gets up and he stands and he falls back. Boom, out like a light. He's down, he's out, he's finished. Everybody puts Moshe on their shoulders. Hooray, Moshe, you did it. And they took him home. And you know, from that day, Moshe never felt the urge to drink again. He became a respectable member of the community. He was somebody who everybody looked up to. Ivan was never heard from again. And Moshe never took another drink other than making a l'chaim for a chasna or for bar mitzvah, and of course on Shabbos. But now he was a respected member of the community. And the community wanted to know, maybe we should celebrate a year later this saving of the town by celebrating it on the 2 weeks before, when we heard what was going to happen and Moshe began the process. Or maybe we should celebrate it on the very night where the miracle took place, where Moshe was able to save the entire town. And they said, we should do it on the night that it happened, the night that we were saved. The victory that this man accomplished for the town, even utilizing a shortcoming and a fault that nobody thought would have any value in life. And here it did. And of course, the valuable lesson that we celebrate, we remember that God took us out of Mitzrayim. It saved us. And it is on that night, that very night, not the beginning of the month of Nisan when we were told we were going to be redeemed, but on the night itself that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, so that you and I are telling the story today of how Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, that we recount to our children and our grandchildren and to ourselves so that we remember that which we saw, not to forget, and to remember vividly with clarity who we are, what we are. And that indeed is the greatest milestone, the marker of a person's life, of where we are, where we've been, and with God's help, where we're going. Thanks for joining me. Peretz Eichler for Smilestones.